Welcome to Grace Over Grit and Growth, a podcast celebrating women's journeys and empowering each other to thrive in our personal lives, career, and businesses. We're two women who are passionate about connecting and inspiring those within our communities. So, we're going to kick off our new episode. I'm Aleita Anderson.
And I'm Monique Fisher.
And this week, we're going to talk about something that we are both passionate about.
Yes.
It's real estate related, but we're going to talk about buying like a boss.
Come on now.
So we want to make sure that we equip you with the tips. Now, I don't know if people know this. When they see this, it'll be what, May, April?
Yeah.
It's April. So when you see spring, I always talk about spring market. What does spring market mean? Or when you hear spring market, what do you think of?
You know, that's a lot of preparation, right? Spring means spring cleaning.
Mhm.
People are thinking about, managing their time. Kids are almost out of school. People are thinking about the next steps for the summer and the fall. So, honey, this is the spring season and the spring has sprung.
It has.
Yes.
It's gotten busier. We're getting the phone calls where people are beginning their search looking for a home.
Yes.
The calls where people are now ready to put their home on the market for sale. So it's a good combination of both. And then in the Midwest, I just think too, with the spring connotation, we used to get seasons. I joke now the season is like daily.
Yeah.
It's
all in one day. It's not in a time. It's not in
not
a
at all.
time of months. And so since we have had a milder winter, people are, doing more of those activities to prepare to either put their homes on sale or to purchase. So,
and I've even had some phone calls where typically people are like, "Oh, I'm going to wait after the holidays," or, once the Super Bowl, what do I need to get ready? I want to be ready right around Easter time. Some of those people have decided to then now list
and
instead of
Easter
waiting.
is very late this year.
It is.
It's not until April 20th. So, people are in that frame of mind. Okay, let's get these things done. And then of course, spring is always income taxes.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
So really, once people, I think, get through that, that third full week of April, I think you're really going to see a lot of homes on the market. And we're going to start getting a few more calls about, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yep. I'm getting some people that are getting ready now because I'm like, well, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Some of the things that you need to do to get ready, because I think the most important thing that sometimes is overlooked in the home buying process is not just jumping into it, but making sure that you have a plan.
Right.
So that there might be a couple things that are surprises, and I don't mean surprises like, oh, you do nothing about it, but things that you may not have planned for, and that's okay. We walk our clients through things that might not be traditional all the time.
Right.
But the essentials, those few tips, the things that are going to happen in every single transaction, you need to know what that is prior to you even stepping foot into looking at a property.
Right. So the first great thing is to hire great realtors such as Aleita or myself.
Yes.
To help steer you through this process, right? And so we start off with a consultation. And so if you have a realtor that does not do that with you, then you need to find another realtor, because we want to really understand what it is that you're trying to do. We truly cannot help you if we don't understand what your goals are. And then we get into talking more about your needs and wants in the house. But we're really trying to understand what is it that you're trying to do.
And there's a couple reasons for that, because you might tell us that your goal is that you need to be in a certain school district by a certain time, and this is the type of house that you want. Now, there's a straight path to that, but sometimes there's a path that might not be just get you right there, that you may not even know, what that looks like. So if we know what your overall goals are, we can sometimes get creative to help you get there in a way that you may not have thought of.
Right. Right. So then the first step after that is that we partner with some great lenders.
Yes, we do.
Right. And we have one lender that has about 200 different mortgage programs that we can't even keep up with. So that's part of our job too, right? Is to give you resources to help you, again, achieve that goal that we talked about in your consultation.
Yes. And Monique mentioned in the consultation, I know Monique does something similar in her business as well. But for me, when I'm walking my clients through these steps, and like we said, we have partners, we have lenders, inspectors, and we'll get through what the different partners are. When I consider somebody a partner, or I consider somebody I'm going to have my client, I'm going to refer them to, on the other end of that referral, the people that I'm referring them to are an extension of my business. That's which right. means that I want my clients to be treated the same way. I almost said but better, but I don't think it gets any better. That's right. But I want to make sure they're a good extension of me. So I hold my referral partners to the same standards that I have in my own business. So, and I think that's very important. Sometimes people are like, oh, I know a guy and I know this. And I've had people that say, you know what, well, I have a cousin who's a lender, does this and that, or an attorney.
You see my eyes.
I'm not gonna say you can't use your cousin, but I will. But I will walk you through the steps of what the expectations are going to be for that transaction.
Right.
And if you then decide to use somebody that may not have those same expectations, then that's something that's a path that you chose. But we can always advise you, and you still can make a decision to do what you choose.
Right. Because everything through this process is your decision.
Yes.
Right. And we want you to know that. Mm-hmm. We are here as a resource and a guide. And we help you to build a team mm-hmm. that will help you get through this process.
Yes.
Because believe it or not, this process moves very quickly. And, there's a lot of emotions that goes on.
I was just about to say that.
When you're trying to purchase a home. And so we're here to help manage some of that too.
Mm-hmm,
right?
Because
we go up and down.
There's a lot of things that are happening all at once. And like I mentioned, is that you want to know the process. The first time you're hearing that you have to do something, it shouldn't be when you have to do something.
Exactly.
So during that consultation that Monique mentioned, the first thing we're going to talk about is the realtor, which would be us or whomever your realtor is. And then the second is going to be getting a lender. Now, when we say get a lender, why does that matter? Everybody does mortgages, don't they? No. And you want to make sure that you have a lender that meets your needs. And I say the same thing with realtors, because it's a relationship. You need to be on the same page, be able to communicate well with each other, and you want it to be a comfortable experience. Most of my business comes from referrals, because I do a great job with my clients and they refer me to their friends and family, or if they're doing another transaction. That becomes because it's not transactional for me.
Right.
It really is making sure that my clients are in the best position and that I'm truly their advocate. Monique does the same thing for them, to put them in the best position, and that they have the resources, and that we are going to bat for them on all corners and angles.
Yes.
So when you get a pre-approval, okay, I'm just going to give you a what if, because we both get these phone calls all the time. Hey, I saw this house that went up the street, what on sale for in my cousin's subdivision when I was over there the other day for dinner, and I want to go see it.
Oh, okay.
I know you're a realtor, Monique. Can we go out Thursday? Because Thursday I'm only work half a day, so can we go out Thursday afternoon, like 4? I'd like to see it.
Okay, so let's step back a little bit and talk about some things. When are you ready to buy? And when I say when are you ready to buy, do you have a pre-approval?
What do you mean? Yeah, I work every day. My credit is good. My cousin lives in that same subdivision. I make like 3 times more than she does, so I know I can afford to live there.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. However, you need to get something called a pre-approval. You have to be pre-approved by a lender, right? Because mm-hmm. this process is about somebody lending you money.
Okay.
To purchase a home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that means you're a risk until they really understand your income, your debt, right?
Okay.
And your bills and what you have. So we don't even know how much of a home you can purchase.
Well, what do you mean? Like, I make roughly $105,000, so I should be able to get like a $500,000 house, right?
Okay, you got a nice 6-figure salary. I love it. I love it. However, we don't know how much debt you have.
Well, I don't have anything past due. Like, all my stuff is current.
And that's good.
Okay.
You're right, because that helps with your credit score. Do you know your credit score?
Yeah, because I'm right at like a 730, something like that.
Okay, that's great. So then you know what? It sounds like then I'm going to get you in touch with one of my lenders.
Okay.
They have an online portal. You simply go in, you're going to Now, let me prep you on some things you're going to need. Because
Okay.
again, I just talked to you about risk, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to need some personal information. And it's not to get into your business.
Okay.
It's so they can see, are you a good risk?
Gotcha.
So you're going to need pay stubs from the past 2 months. You're going to need your income taxes from the past 2 years.
Okay.
Then you can put in what your credit score is. So those are the types of things that you're going to have to give to them so that they can look over everything to see what you can afford.
So how long? Okay, so let's say if I do everything today, or it's between today, like how long does that take for them to tell me?
24 to 48 hours.
Oh, it's that quick.
It's that quick.
Okay, cool. So once I get that, then we can go out to see the house?
Based on the pre-approval. So if your purchase power is at that price, let's work. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. All right, no problem. Now, you might say, that's like, why would you not take somebody out why would you not take me out if I didn't have a pre-approval?
Because it's a waste of my time. That's the honest
That is the honest to God's truth. I will say, realtors.
I don't know if she was looking for that answer, but that's the truth.
I kind of figured I was going to get that answer because I know you, but realtors, it's funny because the illusion of being in real estate and being a realtor is that, you got money flowing like a faucet at all times and it's just coming. But as a realtor, it's one of the few professions where we do all the work up front and you don't get paid until that's done.
Until the end.
So if I have a client that I've been working with, we just can't find a house and we've been looking for 8 months. I'm not charging you that 8 months that we're out, but I don't get paid until you find a house and it closes, and then I get a commission off of that.
Correct.
So, like she mentioned, waste of time, yes, but also it's a waste of resources for clients because I'm gonna say this. So let's say I just this house is $485, right?
Right.
So then I'm like, okay, Monique, we're gonna go look at this house. I go look at the house at $485, and then I do the pre-approval, and they tell me I can get a house at $350.
Now your feelings are hurt.
Not only are my feelings hurt, now that I'm looking at houses at $350, are those houses at $350 ever gonna look as good as that house at $485?
No, ma'am.
No. Now you've set yourself up where you're like, okay, but I want this. Yeah, but you're not getting that at this price point. So, and on top of that, sometimes people throw out the numbers. They say, you know what, I want a $500,000 house. Okay, but what do you want your payment to be?
There you go.
So if you say you want to have a $2,100 month payment in a $500,000 house,
that does not equate.
These current interest rates are not going to let that happen.
The math ain't math.
So when we say things get emotional, those are the types of things that we're talking about. And we don't want it to be a surprise. So you did a great job of telling me that, when you're doing a pre-approval and when we're talking about sending you to our lenders, that's the kind of conversation that I know that my lender is having with my clients. So I'm comfortable with sending them over to him because one of the questions is going to be, okay, you got pre-approved for $650, but at $650, your payment's going to be here. Oh, well, I only want my payment to be $3,100 or, $2,500. Okay, well, at $2,500, you need to look at a house that's going to be $350 or whatever the number is, So if you want to manage your monthly payment, and there's nothing wrong with that. I encourage people to say, hey, what I don't want you to do is be like, yeah, Aleita was my realtor. And ever since we got this house, we've been sitting in it because we can't do nothing else.
We do not want you to be house poor.
We do not.
We want you to enjoy life.
We want you to enjoy your house and everything else that you want to do in your life.
Right.
So I always tell people to think about that. And the other piece is really big in Illinois that's part of your mortgage payment is taxes. So that plays a part into it.
Yeah.
The area that you're looking at may be higher taxes. So like we were talking about, you might have a couple different ways to get to your goal. You might be able to find a house that has those same amenities, maybe in a different area that has lower taxes. So those are all conversations we can have once we have the information to know what you want to do and how you can move forward.
Right.
So you've got me through the pre-approval process. We've gone out, we've seen a house. Now we've written an offer. What happens? The offer, people can do one of three things. They can say, yes, we accept that offer. Yes. They can say, no, we do not accept that offer. Or they can say, you know what? you said you wanted to close on May 31st. We actually don't want to close until June 15th because our kids are going to be out of school. So we'll accept the offer, but we want to make some changes. We want to counter offer and say, we'll take everything else, but we want to change the close date. Or you offer X amount, but we want, $5,000 more. Or we're not going to do your credit. So they could counter offer. They could change a couple different things that you've written in your offer. And then they can counter offer and say, hey, we've made these few changes. If you accept these, then we'll accept your offer.
So there's acceptance, and not acceptance, and counter offer.
Yes. Those are only three things are gonna happen.
That's the only three things that's gonna happen.
So and I laughed a little bit because I said those are the only things that can happen. Because not all realtors are created equal. So sometimes you write an offer and you're like, hello. What happened? Yes, waiting for a response. So, I give ample time. I'll reach out to the realtor. And then sometimes I'm like, you know what? No response is a response. Because like I said, this is a contract, and this is if this is how it's almost like a relationship. If this is how it's starting off, don't expect to get any better.
Not get any better.
So if you can't respond to my offer, what about when we have inspection and we have all these other things? I need someone on the other side of the table that's going to be responsive. And I let my clients know that too, because they don't want to deal with the headache either.
Right. Absolutely.
What else? What are some common things that we hear?
When an offer is accepted?
When the offer is accepted.
Well, when you just get your offer accepted straight away, honey, and that's half the battle right there. Your client is excited and you are ultimately excited. Then we get into, and I like to always inform my clients of the times that you're going to have to come out of your pocket for money.
Oh, yes.
Because I don't think that buyers don't realize the amount of money that they need to have up front to even go through this process. Okay. So the very first time you're going to have to come out of your pocket is something called earnest money. Yes. Right. And that's like good faith money. It's like when I put that offer in, it's saying I'm putting some of the money up front, right? That would go towards it. It goes towards the purchase price. But you're putting it up front to say, hey, I am really serious and committed about this offer. So what do you do for earnest money? Some people do.
It depends. And I say it depends because let's say I know it's a highly sought after property in an area where they're going on and then, they're getting offers. Then I have a conversation with my clients and say, typically I might do like 1%, but if we can do more, then I'll tell them that. Say, hey, this is something this is going to be sought after. Because at the end of the day, like you mentioned, the money isn't going to the seller. It's staying it goes to the buyer's transaction. It's just a good faith down payment. So it still stays with you. So whether you put this money up now or you put it up 30 days from now when you're at the closing table, it's still going to be the same pot of money. But we want to make our offers stand out. So sometimes I'll tell them to put more money up front so that we can do that.
But typically they say 1%. Yeah. So if that's a $300,000 house, that's $3,000. Now, if you put maybe $6,000 down or $5,000, again, it's just a little bit more to improve the offer, right? Yes. It lets the listing agent and the seller know, again, that you're serious and that you have the funds to do this, right? So it just makes you look better in their eyes.
And like I said, everything's a conversation. So when we're doing that buyer's consultation, if you tell me you're looking at a certain area, you want certain things, that might be, okay, well, like you said, we're going to prep you that when we go out, these are the times you're going to need money. So you need about this amount of money set aside in case you find the house that you love. We want to put in an offer. You need to be prepared. And sometimes people will be like, well, I still only want to put the 1% down and I'm okay if I don't win. That's cool
and
too.
And that's fine too. Because again, what did we say at the beginning? It's all about you. These are your decisions. We are just here as consultants and to guide you and to give you examples of our experiences. Right. But the ultimate decision always lies with you.
So we've put up the earnest money.
Yes.
Now, what's the next thing that you're going to come out of pocket for?
A home inspection.
A home inspection. Now, I will say this. I tell all my clients this. A home inspection in the state of Illinois is not mandatory.
It is not.
However, if you go to, I almost said Walmart or Target, but we're not really supposed to be there. So let me say, if you go to Costco, and you buy a karaoke machine.
Okay.
They ring you up.
I'm
What do they
saying.
say? Ma'am, you just spent $300 on this karaoke machine. Would you like a warranty to ensure if anything happens that you're covered?
That's right.
Yeah, and it's probably $300, and the warranty is probably $75 to $100. And people are like, "Oh my God, yes," because I don't want anything to happen. Now, let's just back up a little bit. You've just spent 300. Well, not just, but this house is $350,000. An inspection is going to. The inspector comes in and goes from the roof to the basement, looking at all the mechanics.
Rooter to the tutor.
Looking at all the mechanics. So you're gonna get an inspection report. It's gonna be like a little booklet. It's gonna tell you, you know what? The water pressure is low. I'm saying example, not always, but this could be an example.
Right.
Water pressure is low. The furnace is working great, but it's old. So you're probably gonna have to replace it in the next 3 years or so.
Right.
The roof looks good, electrical looks good. So it gives you not only the things that are possibly wrong with the property, but it also gives you a report of things that maintenance issues that you could know that are going to happen.
Right.
So then you can say, "Ooh, well, this looks about, you know what? They're saying to have all these major things wrong with it. I don't know if I want to deal with this. Although it's fine now, coming up 5-10 years, looks like we have to shell out some money. I don't really want this property." And you have the option of then to say, "Okay, we're going to walk away." Now, on the flip side of it, it also can use as negotiation, because we can say, "Okay, seller, everything looks good, but you know what? This water pressure thing is the issue. I got kids, I have this. We all have to use water at the same time. I don't want to deal with that. So can we, we looked at it. The estimate's going to be $2,500 for the plumbing for whatever to be done to the plumbing. Is that something you're willing to cover?" Again, seller has 3 options. They can say, "Yes, we will accommodate you." They can say, "Nope, we're not doing it." You buy it and you fix it, or you don't buy it. It's up to you. Or they counter offer. They can say, "You know what? We don't pay $2,500, but we'll do $1,000 credit towards it." And you then can say, "Okay,
yes, or no."
No. Yeah, and we can part ways. So, but I always want to point that out to people, because they're like, "Do I have to do inspection?" No, you don't have to. I have not had a client that has not done an inspection, because you're spending hundreds and thousands of dollars. So do you want to spend the $500 to $700 to find out that you have just avoided a $20,000 to $30,000, repair? So you can make that decision.
I always tell my clients, it is the best $500 to $600 that you are ever going to spend. Mm-hmm. You are purchasing probably the biggest thing of your life.
Yes.
And $500 or $600 to tell you whatever the issues are, mm-hmm. or it may or may not be, it's an investment, right?
Yes.
And so at that point too, if you decide, hey, this house is got too many issues for me, because mm-hmm. I want you to know, just because a house looks good on the outside does not mean that the mechanicals and the interior and all of the workings are good. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's the best money that you spent. You can walk away and you're able to get your earnest money back. That money that you put down in good faith, mm-hmm. you're in something called attorney inspection review. And that's a time where you can say, "Hey, too many issues for me, I'm out."
Yes.
And you can, now, again, I'm going to say this again. The inspection money was an investment. You don't get that money back, right?
Right.
But you get your earnest money back.
You do. And let me ask you, have you had clients that have done the inspection and then walked away from the deal?
Oh, absolutely.
And when they did that, did they feel like, "I wish I hadn't got that inspection"?
No, they were happy.
They were happy.
They was like, "I'm so glad I did this," because sometimes it's the real pretty houses.
Mm-hmm. Because they get you caught up on the
heated on
floors
the
and the granite countertops, yes. And then you're like, "Okay, yeah, this wiring doesn't meet code, and it could burn out at any moment." Right. So those are the types of things that are important. People, one of the things that always comes up is like, "Well, now I just had to spend that money on the inspection. What if I find another house? Do I have to pay for the inspection again?"
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, because guess what? You went to work on Monday and you came back on Tuesday. Did they tell you, "Well, you was here Monday, so we're not going to pay"? No, you get paid for everything you do. The inspector did his job, or her job, because we have some lady inspectors too. They did their job, meaning they provided you with an inspection report, and they did it for that property. Now, a lot of times people have inspectors, they may work with you on the price or something of that nature, but yes, they need to get paid. So don't feel like because you have multiple. I count it a blessing that you found that out before, because guess what? Until that closing, everything that's wrong with that house or the problems are the seller's problems,
That's
issues.
right.
Once you have that closing, it is now your issue. So if you were able to spend $500 to avoid a $20,000 issue, count it a blessing that
It's
you
a
found out.
blessing. Yes.
Yeah.
And we talk about this too in our podcast. Mindset.
Yes.
You got to change your mindset.
You got to change your mindset.
Yes.
Because sometimes there's warnings and there's things of prevention in place to protect you. And I've had it on the flip side too, where people have gotten some pretty drastic things in inspection, and they're like, "No, but I told everybody I wanted to live in this. I have a house in this area," and I'm like, "Yeah, but let's look at this. Let's take a step back. I want you to sleep on it, and we'll come back and you decide see what you want to make."
Because it's still, again, it's your decision.
It's your decision.
If you take a house that has potentially $20,000 worth of issues coming up down the road, that's on you, right? So again, I just like to stress that it's all about you and the decisions that you need to make. And it is an emotional time.
It is.
Right.
It very much is. And that's why we're there, because people don't purchase houses every single day.
They do not.
We work with people so we can be a little more detached, where it's like, okay, great. We take some of that emotion out of it to then be your advocate, to be the negotiator, and to make sure everything is moving as it should, and kind of bring the facts and the reality to it. To use to help you with that decision.
So let's say we've been through the inspection and, we've done some counter offers and negotiation.
Yes.
Okay. But everything is good and we're still moving forward.
Okay.
What happens next?
Then you're going to have an appraisal. So the appraisal, we said the house was what, $350. The lender's going to order an appraisal because they're lending you $350,000 to purchase this house, right, over the 30 years. So what they need to make sure that the house is actually worth $350,000. Because if it comes back and it says this house is actually only worth $320,000, guess what? You're not going to be able to get a mortgage for $350,000, because they're not going to over invest or give you a mortgage for something
that's not worth it.
Right. So that's a protective measure for you too. On the flip side, however, though, let's say it's $350 and the appraisal comes back at $375. That just means you got some equity before you even moved in.
That means you have $25,000 worth of equity.
Yeah.
But let's stay at the $350 and it was worth $320.
Yes.
So what happens now?
What happens now?
I'm supposed to come up with $30,000.
We go back to the negotiating table. So with that, we can go back to the sellers and say, hey, the appraisal came back and it appraised low, meaning that it appraised lower than whatever price that you offered and accepted. And they have a couple different things. We can say, you know what, we're going to lower the price to $325 because they can't get a mortgage for more than that. Now, in like 2020 or 2021, was something that was really big was that people would be like, I don't care.
I want it.
I want the house. So people would pay the difference. So that means that, yes, in that instance, you are coming up with that $25,000 out of your pocket. Because remember, they're only giving you what the house is worth. So they're going to give you the mortgage for the $325, but you're buying at $350.
Right.
So that means that you're coming in negative equity of $25,000. Now, some people are like, well, who would do that? Sometimes people, if they're going to be in the property for a long period of time.
And that's the question we ask. If you think you're going to stay, if this is your forever home, go for it.
Yeah.
But if you know within the next 5 to 7 years, you may be moving, I would say you want to think about that.
Yeah, because it's risky.
It's risky. You want to be able to recoup the value of what you pay for a house if you plan on moving. And again, that goes back to us talking to you in a consultation, right? So we kind of know these things to help to guide you through.
And we can talk about things that we've seen in certain areas. So we'll kind of know going in what you're going to be up against. So the first time that you hear about these things won't be when they're happening.
Right.
We've had some conversations.
Absolutely. So, but for us, we're moving on down Happy Road. The house has appraised for the $350.
Yes.
So we're using, right, $350. So now, what's going on?
Now what's going on is they're like, okay, I've done everything. What am I waiting for? Why can't I sign the papers? Because you're like, everything's done. There's a couple things that are happening in the background. This one I want to cover because this comes up a lot.
Yeah.
The lender is going to be asking you questions for documents, current pay stubs, things that they may need, because there's the lender, and there's an underwriter who's looking at everything to make sure that if you said that you work 42 hours and you get paid $46.50 an hour, that paycheck is adding up and then it comes in on every week. So they're looking at your bank account, they're looking at different things as well. So they may ask you for documents. I always tell my clients when they're asking for the documents, make sure you get them in a timely fashion. Yes. Because what happens is I'm the underwriter and I'm like, Monique, I need this for you. And you say, okay. I'm like, okay. When Monique gets back to me, I'm gonna get back to her file. So Monique doesn't get back to me didn't send me those documents over for like a week. Guess what hasn't been touched? Your file. Right. Hasn't been touched for a week because they need that information to move forward. That can then affect your closing date because they're not able to process things. So you need to make sure that you're getting things to them in a timely fashion. And I always have to remind people to reel them back in. Like, they're asking a whole lot of questions. Yes. Somebody calls you up and says, I need to borrow $500. There's probably only a few people that you'll be like, oh, okay, where can I send it to? Without asking some questions. Right. So we're talking about $350,000. They're gonna ask you some questions. They're gonna want to see some documents because it's a lot of you can pay this mortgage. And if you feel that strongly that you don't want to provide those documents, you're gonna have to find an alternate source to get that $350 to get the house. Right. So it's good. So just work with them there. The other thing that happens that people don't realize is they're doing what's called a title search. So what that title search does, so let's say I'm buying Monique's house. So they're searching the title and they say, oh my gosh, Monique's name is on here, but it's also a lien on here from a medical bill from 2 years ago or something. Because sometimes if you have debts or things like that, and if they're not paid, it can go against your home. So what that means is attached to the title. So it's a flag. So if anytime somebody goes to sell that house, that means those debts need to be paid prior to the being lifted and then the house being able to be sold. That doesn't mean that you can't close. What that means then is that the seller has to handle those things that are owed so that the house can be sold. Right, because you want a clean title. That's what it's called. It's called clean title. One place that we see these come up a lot is modifications, because during COVID time, a lot of people did modifications on their homes. And a lot of people thought they didn't have to pay those back. Yeah, they're like, oh, you can't pay your mortgage? No problem. And some people really couldn't pay their mortgage because their hours were cut or they couldn't go into work, whatever. Then other people just chose not to pay their mortgage and get this modification. So what happens is now what's called a cloud on the title. It says, okay, yeah, your payoff in your house is $210,000. Oh, and then that modification period for when you didn't pay your mortgage, that's another $40,000. So now they're like, okay, the amount of money that you have in the sale, most of the time they can still close because you'll still have the seller will still net enough money to pay off. Right. But in some instances, it's really close, or sometimes the seller would have to come out of pocket for something to make it equal. So they thought that they were getting that $40,000, and now they have to pay it. They may not have enough money to it. So in those instances, it may not close. So to you as buyers, you just want to know that you have a clean title. Yes. Going in. So there's things going, and that's what the title company will be working with you on. Your attorney will help you with that as well. And that's another thing that we didn't touch on as part of your team is going to be your attorney. You'll have an attorney that'll be handling your paperwork, processing, working with the lender, making sure that the title's clear, doing a survey so that, you know what, you think this whole yard is yours, whatever, but it's actually marked on property so you can see exactly what is yours, the plat of survey that you'll get. Because sometimes we find that fences may be a little bit over on somebody else's property. Right. So they come out and stake the property. That's a survey. And so that's a part of the process too. But I want to double back and talk about something. Okay. When we're going through this process, right? So you got the appraisal. I know what you're going to say. Right? And we're kind of waiting. Aleita talked about you may have to bring some paperwork in. You know, it's you and the underwriter. Let me tell you something right now as buyers. Do not purchase anything. I knew that's where you were going. Nothing. You just continue to pay your bills and go through the way you've always been going through. If you do, I have had somebody who went and bought furniture prior to getting a house. That changes your debt ratio, people. Yes. If you didn't pay cash for it, then if you did, that means you don't have as much cash as they thought you did. They want, or you got it from somebody else. They want to know where you got it from. Do not
purchase anything during this time, this is a 30 to 45 day window.
Hold off.
Just hold off.
When you leave the title company, when that closed and you got the keys in your hand,
right,
you can drive right from there
and go buy
whatever you want. If you want to go get you a new car, if you want to go get you some furniture.
But while I'm working with you, I have had people take stuff back.
Oh gosh, I had no funny story.
We do not want to mess up this deal.
I called you when you said take stuff back. It made me think of this. I called my client. She was a buyer. I called her and I don't know. I was checking in for some paperwork or just checking to see how things were going. And she was like, "Hold on a second." And I said, oh, "Okay." Then she was like, "Oh, I'm at furniture store." And I said, "What are you doing?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm measuring this thing." And I was like, "Don't buy no furniture." I was like, "We talked about this. Don't you buy anything." I was like, "I don't care if they tell you," because they'll always like, "Oh, it's not going to affect you because we don't build this for like 90 days and you can just pay this off and we're not going to run anything." No, because in that instance, the same thing with car dealerships. I've had someone that okay, so they had a particular car and their car payment was, let's say, $900, right? So then she went and bought another car because her car payment was only $600 or $700. So she's like, "Well, that's not a problem because it's less than."
It's a problem.
It's a problem because guess what? In that 30-day, we said it the closing is about 30 to 45 days. Now it's going to show that you have a loan for the current car that you had and that you took out another loan because it's not going to show that loan is paid off until the next. So now you have to answer all those questions and do not co-sign for someone. Because that also affects your credit.
No well, that's just me personally. Don't listen to me on that one, but I'm not co-signing for that.
I'm trying to think of anything else. So if you ever see, and I'll see these memes sometimes on the internet, and they'll be like, "Oh, you didn't use me as a realtor? But I'm so glad that you purchased the house. You should go get you a new car or something," because they know that it's going to affect it and they're not going to, be able to close. And I always say this, if you have a question, call your lender, call your realtor and be like, "Hey, I was looking to do, is this okay?" Right. Don't stop paying your bills. That seems like a no-brainer. Right? You would just think, don't do that. People were like, "Well, I'm trying to save up for this." Like, but you still have to pay your bills.
We don't want any delinquencies.
I've had people do that. So then they have the credit score falls because they haven't paid the bill. So make sure. Think of it this way. When you got the pre-approval, the pre-approval is a snapshot of your current financial situation. The amount of income that you're bringing in, the amount of debt that you have, that is what you're pre-approved for. You're not approved for less or more. You always think that, oh, well, less is better. Not always. No. So do not do anything different. If you think something's going to be a little bit different, reach out to your lender, reach out to your realtor, find out how that looks and what you can do. Don't switch jobs. I've had people do that. I had people quit their job, which I do not understand, but they've quit their job like, "Oh, it was stressful and I'm just going to find me a new job." That's great.
Not while you purchasing a house.
But they want to know if you can pay the loan back. So yeah, don't change anything.
And they check your credit score the day before closing.
Yes.
They run your credit. Mm-hmm. And I tell my clients, they have a magical credit system. They know if you standing outside of a car dealership or something, just don't do it. Okay. And I know I'm joking, but I'm serious.
It's serious because those things, it's actually, we talked about the home buying process being emotional. It is heartbreaking because you've done all this to get to this point, and one thing that you've done or changed is now push you out where you can't purchase. Right. So don't do that. Oh, another one that's kind of new that comes up, but people don't think it makes a big deal because it doesn't hit their credit score. When you purchase something online and then when you go to pay for it, it asks you, do you want to pay for it in full or do you want to break it in like 4 60 payments?
Easy payments.
What is it? Oh, like Klarna is one. Klarna. There's a few different ones that they're basically in-house financing, so it doesn't hit your credit because it's just through them. So it's not like a credit card or things like that. Had someone that was financed their honeymoon that way. And not all parties were aware of what was happening. So when they didn't necessarily see it when they ran their credit. However, when they provided their bank statements, they were like, "What is this $225 coming out every third Thursday or whatever the payment was. You know, whatever. They're like, what is this for? And they're like, oh, this was that. And then it was high. I want to say it was like $17,000-$18,000 trip. So that then changed your debt. That then changed your debt to income ratio, because technically you now do have a loan.
You do,
but it wasn't kind of on their credit, so then that made them disqualified for the home.
So just don't
do it. Some things you be like, oh, I'm going to outsmart the system. Somebody else thought that, so now they put in a new parameter so that you can't do that. So don't try to play any games. It's not worth it. It's not worth it at all.
So that's the underwriting process. And then the other thing you have to purchase is you have to have homeowners insurance. It's very important, right? Nobody's going to have you purchase a house if you're not protecting the house with insurance. So you have to purchase a full year's policy, and present that policy at closing, right?
Yes.
So that's another expense out of pocket that you will have.
Yep.
Then if everything is going well, you haven't purchased anything, you've done everything Aleita or I have said, and you're moving along, and you get this magical words called clear to close.
Whoop, whoop.
Yes, we go whoop, whoop. And you usually get that 3 days before the actual closing date.
Yes.
Again, still don't buy anything or do anything. Because remember I said they will check your credit score the day before closing. But you do have a clear to close signal. And then you get the paperwork about your documents from your lender, and then they schedule your closing date.
Yes. And in those documents, it'll tell you exactly how much money you need to bring to the closing table. So you'll know that.
And again, that earnest money, right? That's deducted in that, right? So if you would have owed $20,000 at closing,
right,
and you put down $5,000, now it's $15,000. So it definitely goes towards your ending costs, right? And then when we talked about the inspection time, so say, you know what, we asked them to fix, say, the plumbing, as we talked about before, the water pressure.
Yes.
The day, now I do my walkthroughs the day of the closing. So if the closing is 9 a.m., we at that property at 7:30 or 8 a.m. going through it. You get an opportunity to go back into the house prior to signing all your documents. And you take the list of things that you asked the seller to fix, if you did.
Yes.
And you make sure those things are fixed. Now, if you get a credit for it, fine. But you're also making sure nothing else has been taken out. So you want to share any fun stories of things that have been taken out of homes prior and doing the inspection?
Gosh, I've had a closing. I've got a few. So I've had a closing that was held up for 3 additional days. Like we were supposed to close, I want to say on like let's say Monday. We didn't close until Thursday, because when we got there, the curtains were gone. And the curtains weren't supposed to be gone. They said they were leaving the curtains. And my buyer was like, no, they said they were leaving those curtains.
I want my curtains.
The reason it got held up, so then they could return the curtains. However, the people were relocating, so they were already on the road. So they couldn't get the curtains to us. So they ended up reordering the curtains. It was somewhere in Oakbrook, because they reordered them. I went and picked them up and brought them, and then we got them so they could close. But they were like not letting those curtains go.
Life of a realtor.
They were not letting those curtains go. I've had one where we went to go do the final walkthrough. We went to go do the final walkthrough, and we were like, "What is that noise?" And we went down the basement. It was water flooding into the basement because the house had been remodeled, and when it was remodeled, they covered up the drains so the water had nowhere to go. So guess what?
It just built up.
It just built up in the basement.
Let's swim in the basement.
Pretty much. So things were floating around there. We didn't close there. That was pushed back a while because they had to redo all the work that was done. They did eventually close, but
I've had people swap out appliances.
Oh yeah.
So like it was Samsung products in there, and then we got in there and it was a Frigidaire. And my client was like, "What is this?" So then you have to.
Or the flip side of it, I've gone to where stuff is supposed to be out and there's stuff
And
still
the
there.
stuff still there.
I've had
Right.
people leave bedroom sets. Oh, we just didn't want that. Well, we don't
want it either.
We don't either.
And so when something like that happens, then
Mhm.
you have to say, okay, then it's gonna cost me $1,500 to get that junk out of that house.
Yeah.
And then you can be credited that $1,500 at
Mhm.
closing to be able to do that. So those types of things, they also do happen.
Yeah, so your house is supposed to be left in broom swept condition, which means there shouldn't be anything that's like things that are supposed to be there, supposed to be things that are attached to the walls or whatnot while you were there. All those things should be there.
Yes.
What happens? Oh, so this is what happens if you go to do the walkthrough, and Monique, this is funny because it was my closing. The closing got extended for whatever reason, so it got pushed back 2 weeks. The 2 weeks that it got pushed back, I was on vacation.
Right.
So I wasn't able to do the final walkthrough, be at the closing because I was gone. So I didn't say, okay, well, I'm gone. Y'all don't have anybody. Like, too bad you have to wait till I get back. I have somebody else do it. So Monique did the final walkthrough for me, because I wasn't there. Do you want to walk through?
So I walked through. First of all, we had to go through the back door, which I thought was crazy. But nevertheless, I just follow instructions. Right.
Those were not my instructions.
No, from the seller. I follow instructions. So I go in, I walk in, and I immediately start squishing. And I'm like, what is happening? And I lift up, there's rugs everywhere. I lift the rugs up, and the floor is just saturated in water. And so when I walked in that back door, I'm walking directly into the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we had water.
Yeah, we had water. So she took video, took pictures. She sent it to me. I sent it to the attorney. Let the attorney know what was happening.
Right.
They were able to negotiate putting some money in escrow, which means they basically put money to the side, saying the buyer's going to do those repairs. They'll submit the receipts, and then this money will be dispersed to the buyer to be reimbursed for the repairs once they're completed. Yes.
And the buyer was a little hot, but we walked through that house. We found the source of the leak, and then we took pictures of that. Mm-hmm. So then, as realtors, we do our due diligence too. And they stayed calm pretty much. It wasn't like it
was stressful for them because.
But no, it was stressful because they had packed up all their stuff. They were moving from a home.
They closed on their one house in the morning. They went and had lunch. So they sold their house in the morning.
And they
went to go have lunch. So they were literally in a U-Haul
with all of their stuff.
All their stuff to get into this house because they were purchasing that house in the afternoon. So with those types of things, we mentioned emotion. That's why, because there's so many different things that happen. You got all your belongings here, and the other things are coming over later in the day. So you kind of have to make quick decisions, and you have to figure out how to get things resolved so that everybody's satisfied.
Right. But that is basically the process.
That is the process. We went through it, but we went through it pretty quickly.
Through it really quickly, but I just want people to understand too that I keep saying emotional. There's ups and downs, and your realtor, your team that you build around you is what's most important.
It is,
and that's why we truly do have people to support us in those different fields: attorney, mortgage broker, inspectors that are truly an extension of us. They are passionate about home ownership for people too, and they are really committed to people.
Yes.
So it's important to find a realtor like that.
Yeah, and I always say, if you're thinking of like, oh, I could possibly want to purchase, reach out and have a conversation. I've had a buyer's consultation a couple of weeks ago with someone who's looking to purchase probably within a year.
Yeah.
Because you want to know, what should I be like? What ducks do I need to get in a row? I'm thinking of these areas. So then you can start looking at things from a different lens to really hone in on what you want and what are some of the things you need to do to be prepared. Because the worst thing to do is just to jump into it with no plan at all. And I always feel like you can never be too prepared. So.
Right.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. And if you have a realtor or someone on your team is like annoyed with your questions, find somebody else.
Right.
Because it is, like Monique mentioned, probably one of the largest purchases that you will be making in your lifetime. You have a right to have questions. You have a right to have people that support you and are advocates to make sure that you're making the best decisions.
Yeah. So That's this episode. Buy like a boss.
Buy like a boss.
We hope that you enjoyed it and got some tips out of it.
Yes.
And we are quite serious. If you are thinking about purchasing a home, you can contact either one of us. We would love to help you. We would love to do a buyer's consultation with you just to talk, whether it's now, 6 months, or even a year out.
Yes.
It's all good.
And we know that you guys are going to be watching this online, which means you may or may not be in the state of Illinois. That's okay, because we have referral partners that are throughout the country.
Yes.
So if you're living in a different state and you're like, well, how would I buy in Dallas, or how would I buy in Atlanta? Wherever you are, we have partners there too. So reach out, let us know. We'll get you connected with someone that will do right by you and help you buy like a boss.
Take care. Bye-bye.
We will see you next time.